Day 2, television and film buffs. This is Dr. Mark Keuthan, and we're going to talk for a few minutes about this course, Writing for Television, its goals, rationale, and best practices, because so many of you have been asking me questions about what's the best way to do this course. I thought I'd make a video that might help. This is the only course that I know of that we really offer to master's students in television, writing for television. We don't have an aesthetics course for television. We don't have sometimes we have a history course which kind of touches on television, but we at Regent University don't really do television very much, which we're trying to change. That needs to change, and you're going to find out why in just a couple of minutes. So what you see on the screen here is the either end of the comedy and drama, the two faces of theater. At the top, the very beginning of television comedy, I Love Lucy, who was a pioneer in so many ways, so was Desi. They really invented, you get into this if you study the show, they invented the way that sitcoms were lit, shot, edited, marketed, all kinds of things. So Lucy was really kind of the inventor of television sitcoms. And then, of course, today you have Big Bang Theory, which, unfortunately, you can't write for them because they're done. Their final season was this last season. Down at the bottom, you have the longest running, for a long, long time, well, actually the two longest running television dramas in history. For a long, long time, it was Gunsmoke that was on television for over 20 years. It went through all kinds of cast changes, dozens and dozens, hundreds of episodes. And of course, Matt Dillon, played by the Christian man, James Arness, was the Marshall Dillon for forever and ever and ever. But that was the dramatic representation of law enforcement in the early days of television. And now you see on the left there, you see Mariska Hargitay and the rest of her crew, who are now the reigning champs of the longest running television drama on crime show on television, and that's Law & Order Special Victims Unit. So there you go. That's what kind of, so we have history, we have decades and decades of television writing for you to take a look at so that you can see what you might want to study. All right, so what are we doing here? The end result of this class, as put together and conceptualized by the writing staff and faculty at Regent, is for you to get to the end of this class with two spec scripts for a television show currently in production, which you could use to get work. And so I put two television shows. In fact, what I'm going to put on the rest of these slides is examples of television shows that you could write for, that you could write spec scripts for and market to them and see if you can get work with them. So Young Sheldon's just been renewed for 2-3 more seasons, I think, so it's going to be on the air for a while. Stranger Things, which is on Netflix, is definitely going to be on Netflix for a few more seasons. That's a very popular television show. So the end result, when you get to the end of this course, you should have two industry-ready spec scripts for a TV show currently in production, and you can use it to get work. Now, let me say something about writing for television for just a second, because really the whole point of television is that you can do a whole bunch of positive things for your career as a writer. I know that so many of you only want to write for feature films, and that's all that matters to you. It's the gold standard of things forever and ever and ever. But since television is becoming more and more cinematic, which we'll talk about in just a second, writing for television is a great way to get started. In fact, many of you will find that you get the television bug, and that's who you want to write for. So Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, starring Jim, I can't remember his name, he was from The Office, is in its second season. It's going to launch second season very soon, and they are very serious about making this one a multi-season television show, Jack Ryan. So if you love this kind of writing, Tom Clancy's kind of espionage, spy, thrillers kind of stuff for television, it's gonna be on Netflix for quite some time. They've got the money and they've got the numbers to make that happen. So here's why you should write for television. They're always needing fresh talent. It's always, 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 always. There's so many channels, so many networks, so many streamings, so many possibilities that they're always looking for trained writers. And so don't disdain television just because it's not feature film. As you'll notice, we'll talk about there's lots of different kinds of writing that's needed. Everything from fantasy to spy thrillers to sappy dramas to comedy, different kinds of comedy, horror. In other words, all of the genres and subgenres that are in feature films are also on television. Even documentaries have to have writers. And there are lots of television shows that have a documentary feel to them. Even what we'll call the reality television shows, which is a massive category at this point, they have to have writers too. Duck Dynasty had to have writers, believe it or not. And as I already indicated, there are multiple markets growing. Feature film audiences are dwindling. This is a problem in Hollywood. The studios are really panicking because they can't figure out how to get people to go back to the movie theaters, So what they're doing is they're creating feature films, but they're adapting them to television because that's where the money is. So streaming services are buying and creating their own original document, and that's what feature films are doing. But that's television. That's not feature films anymore. Also, really importantly, faith-based writers have more opportunities to work than any other time in history. Since the release of the very profitable 2004 Passion of the Christ, Christian writers have been in demand. People who have said, wow, we have got to get some faith-based people on our staff. So whether you're Catholic or Christian or Protestant or whatever, there is still this need for trained writers who are Christians, who have that understanding of what a Christian audience is looking for. PureFlix is doing their own streaming and original content now. So Hulu, Netflix, the main networks are looking for great writers that are ready to do some writing for them. All right, and at the very bottom down there, especially the networks, it pays very well. The unions have indicated the pay scale for even beginning writers, whether you're network, whether you're streaming service, any of those, the people who want to hire you have to pay you a certain amount of money. Even if you go to Atlanta and work for Tyler Perry, you still have to be paid a certain amount of money. And it's usually quite a lot, actually. Look it up sometime. Go to the WGA website, WG, Writers Guild of America website, and look for the current pay scale for beginning television writers. You're going to be stunned at what they pay per episode if you get a writing credit. All right, so how do we get there? I put When Calls the Heart on there because so many of you like to write this kind of stuff. Ugh, gag me, I hate it. But it does make money, and there's a massive market for it, especially among Christian women. So you like this kind of stuff. When Calls the Heart is in its 6th season starting this September. They're going to renew it. Hallmark Channel is going to do this series for as long as they possibly can, as long as they can keep Aaron Krakow, and as long as they can get rid of Lori McLaughlin. And they survived the loss of their lead Mountie. But if you like to write this kind of stuff, this is a viable alternative of a place to write because they desperately need good writers. Oh my God, do they need good writers? Okay. So there is a time-honored process. If you want to write spec scripts for a television show and get work, there has been, go on YouTube and look for, I posted a bunch of these on Blackboard. There lots and lots of industry professionals, including Shonda Rhimes, will tell you how did they get into the business. And there is a process which seems to work, even today. And so this class puts you through the process, okay? That's the whole point. This class puts you through the process. So the first thing you got to know is you got to know how television is made. Some of you think you know how television is made. Well, actually some of you who work in television do know how television is made. But for the rest of you, it's really important for you to understand how television is made because it's different. It's very different from feature films. Feature films take a leisurely time. They go over through 25 different script writings. They have several people called in. They try it out. They shoot a teaser. They try and acquire money. None of that applies in television. Television writing, by and large, is a schedule-based, get it done, do it right the first time kind of writing. And because of the business model, how it makes money. And so you really do need to know how television is made. The format, by and large, is set in stone. There's some exceptions, of course, but for more than 70 years, there has been a length for half-hour comedies. They're 22 minutes, generally speaking. And 1-hour dramas are typically, depends on what network you're working on, are anywhere from 42 to 48 minutes long. PBS is 48 minutes, network television is 42 minutes. So you really do need to know this stuff. If you're going to write for a particular television show that you like, you need to know their format because they've said it and they don't want to, they can't move from it. And you need to learn what it is. And more importantly, and this is what the first 5 weeks of this class is about, the aesthetics are different than feature film. The lighting is different. The camera work is different. The sound mixing is different. The script writing narratives are all different. The act structure is different. This is something you really are going to, so we built this course so that you're going to take a look at comparing television aesthetics to feature film aesthetics by studying actual shows. So pick a show that you really love and you're going to watch several episodes and just look at the cinematography and write about it and compare that to a similar genre feature film and see how the cinematography in that is and write about it. So this comparison study of individual aspects of aesthetics is what the first 5 weeks of this course are all about. You should have a foundation in understanding, because it will affect your writing. If you understand how a television sitcom is lit and photographed, then you will be able to write it so that it fits their format. It fits the aesthetics that they're trying to do. And every television show has a little bit different format. The typical television sitcom like Modern Family or Big Bang Theory is just a series of studio sets where they just light the crap out of it. There is no shadows. There's just tons of lights. And it lights out the windows, lights through doorways. You need to study this, is my point. And that's what this first 5 weeks is about. Efficiency is the key. Television is all about get it done fast, get it done well, get it done right the first time. You don't have time for rewrites, or very little time for rewrites. And, excuse me, in television, the writers tend to be the producers. They produce or help to produce the individual episodes that they've written. And so you need to know this stuff. You need to learn how to be efficient because that's how they make their money. Blue Bloods is still on television, even though Tom Selleck, who is the keystone of that television show, the rest of those actors, those very fine actors notwithstanding, this is a faith-based network television show. This is a family of Catholics who are proud to be Catholics and bring their Catholicism into their work as a family, a multi-generational family who still sits down together after church to Sunday dinner, and they work things out as a family. It's a great television show. And Tom Selleck has decided he's still going to keep going. He plays the police commissioner. He's north of 70 years old. Can't believe it. But he still has a very, very high television Q, a TQ, a television quotient, which is how high the demographics are and people willing to sit down in front of a television at a certain time of the week and watch him do his thing. The rest of them are good too, but it's really the anchor of the show is Tom Selleck. So as long as he continues to want to do this show, they're going to keep signing him up for more seasons of this show, if you like this kind of show. So there is a step 2. Know how television is made. Study the different delivery systems. Study how network television is delivered, streaming, which is different. These are different business models. The BBC has an even different television format called long form. Think Downton Abbey, for example, which is one long show developed by one writer, Julian Fellows, over many seasons. Although they don't call them seasons, they call them series. Excuse me. But long form television is caught on in the United States. We used to call them miniseries, but now we're starting to get, especially on the streaming services, long form BBC style television series. They're calling them originals over here. Hulu, Prime, Amazon Prime, and PureFlix and Netflix all have BBC style long form televisions. And then, of course, web series. There are lots of really, really profitable web series television shows on television that you can look at. Study the genre that you like. Study what it means to write a half-hour comedy. Crime procedurals, which happens to be my personal favorite. I love crime procedurals. I've studied them for many, many years. I teach a course occasionally in the summer called Writing Crime Thrillers. And these are the shows that if I have a few minutes that I want to relax and sit down and watch something, I go find a crime procedural. I love them. The 1 hour drama is still alive and well. It's still out there. And almost every different delivery system has one. And then there's this wonderful new combination of the two called dramedies, which are still out there. These are 1 hour long, but they're a combination of drama and comedy. Some of the elements of drama, some of the elements of comedy. The best example of this was a television show which lasted for 5 years called Chuck, starring our good friend Zachary Levi, who's currently in the film Shazam. So, know your target format, your genre, study it. Super important. Because you want to be able to write like you're already in that television show, like you're already on that staff. That's what they're looking for. There's a way to study these shows so much that it feels like you should already belong on the staff, and I think that's the point. Okay, study the show you want to write for. I just said that. Watch, study every episode produced, and read the scripts for episodes too. This is, again, the example of Shonda Rhimes. Shonda Rhimes, who really wanted to write for television, did not go to school. All she did was she got a hold of scripts. Lots and lots and lots of scripts, and read scripts, and noticed the format, and noticed the style, and noticed the action paragraphs, and et cetera, character development, all that kind of stuff. She studied scripts, and then she watched. Her favorite person to study was Aaron Sorkin, and so she watched every episode of everything that Aaron Sorkin ever made. And so, excuse me, she learned how to write for television that way. You should do the same thing. The way to find out, in this particular case, I put Beverly Hills 90210, which they're launching again. I can't believe it. This sappy, soapy thing that was on in the 80s, they're bringing it back, or 90s. I didn't watch it, so I don't know. But if you wanted to write for this show, which is in its first season, and you hope that it survives, go back and watch all the old stuff. Get a hold of the old scripts. Notice how they develop those characters. Watch and study every episode you can get a hold of, which frankly are probably on DVD at your local library. And then, more importantly probably than anything else, and this is why you're in school and taking this class, use your critical analysis skills to truly understand the show. What every writer will tell you who wants to get on a particular show is you have to understand the heart of the show. What makes it tick? When critics study television shows for what makes them work or not work, this is what they're looking for. And so they review after a first season, they go, it hasn't really found its heart. It hasn't really found its legs, which what they're trying to say is they haven't found their groove. They haven't really figured out what the show is about. If you want to write for a television show, you have to find that out in advance of applying for that show. And the way you do that is that you do a critical analysis of the show, its episodes, its scripts, its writing. Look at a lot of DVDs, for example. One of the television shows that I wanted to write for before it got off the air was a show called Leverage, which starred Timothy Hutton and a whole bunch of other people. It was kind of one of the only heist thriller shows on television, con artists, that sort of thing, a genre I really enjoy. And so I studied it. What I did, I got a hold of the DVDs from the library of the shows that had been produced, and they had the writers doing commentary. If you want to find out and do a critical analysis of a show and truly understand what a show is about, get DVDs with the writer's commentary, if it's available, for that show. You'll find out in a hurry what that show is really about. This is another show that's in its first season, Why Women Kill. It's on CBS. If you want to write for this show, you might take a look at it. Step 3, choose a TV show to study. Choose a TV show that you could choose. You could, best practices, you could choose one TV show to study for all of the first 5 weeks. And then you could, by extension, then make that the show that you want to try and write your spec scripts for. You don't have to. But if you choose one TV show to study for all 5 weeks, you'll know that one TV show really thoroughly. So you'll watch some episodes and just look at the narrative structure. You'll watch that same television show, some episodes, and you'll just look at the cinematography and the editing and the sound design, etc., etc. So by the end of 5 weeks, you will have done a thorough aesthetic critical analysis of that television show, comparing it to similar feature films, and you'll have a pretty good grasp of the structure, aesthetics, and therefore the best way to write for one particular television show. So you don't have to do this. I'm naming this as a best practice because I've seen students do this before, and they've said this worked better than picking a different television show to write about for each of the first 5 weeks. You can still do that. That's still an option. But many students who have gone before you have said best practices is choose one show. Second best practice, choose a TV show to study for the first 5 weeks that is the same genre that you enjoy watching when you have the time. I already said that for me it's crime procedurals. So I would choose to study a TV show to study for the first 5 weeks that is of the crime procedural genre. But if you happen to like horror, there's horror films out there. Stranger Things kind of falls into that category. Once Upon a Time fell into that category. I don't think it's on the air anymore. American Horror Show falls into that category. It's on FX. So choose a TV show to study. You might as well enjoy it. I mean, you've already got a leg up if you're already watching that kind of television show. All right, here we go. Best practices, step 4. This is another new television show, and I don't remember what it's coming out on, but it's in its first season, and this is Dark Crystal, based on a feature film from the 1980s starring David Bowie and a very young Academy Award-winning actress, Jennifer Connelly. Anyway, they've relaunched it. So if you really like writing in the fantasy genre, here's one that you might consider. Dark Crystal is being relaunched. It's in its first season in September. Excuse me. So step 4 is choose a TV show to write 2 spec scripts for. It has to be a show that's still in production. It can't be one that's not in production anymore. I really can't stress this enough, and it's because when you go to shop your spec scripts to get work, the producers of different television shows don't care if you know how to write for the Dick Van Dyke Show, or the Lucy Ball Show, or for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or for, any of 100 other shows, Frasier, Cheers, any of those great television shows in the past. They don't care because they're not making those shows anymore. They want to know, can you write today? So you need to choose a television show still in production, any of the delivery methods. So it can be one on Netflix or Hulu, the streaming services. It can be on network television. It can be on the internet. It just needs to be a TV show, I would say successful television show, still in production. And choose a television show currently not in its last season. And it's not hard to find this out. Go to the trade mags online, go to variety.com, go to excuse me, there's dozens of them. The trade mags online will let you know which television shows are in their last season. season finales is what they're called. And so they made a big to-do last year about a Big Bang being in its final season, the final season. They do that to pump up the ratings. They want to try and get people watching the last season of whatever it is. So don't write for these shows because there won't be a job available to you. You see that? Okay. And lastly, choose a TV show you really enjoy watching. I've already noted that I really enjoy watching Blue Bloods. If I were in the market to write TV spec scripts and wanted to get a job, I would choose to write spec scripts for Blue Bloods because I've watched it, I've studied it, I like it, I know that it's not in its last season, and it's just something I really enjoy. So I will enjoy the work of putting together. Before it went off the air, one of the television shows that I wanted to work for was called Longmire. It went 5 seasons. It was on A&E for a while, and then Netflix bought it, and I thought it might go for a while on Netflix, but it didn't. But I wrote some spec scripts on Longmire. In fact, you can read them if you want to. But they're useless at this point. They won't get me any work because that show is not on the air anymore. All right, step 5, study your chosen show. So this is what the last 10 weeks of this show is going to be about. I mean, this course is going to be about. You're going to do episode breakdowns, you're going to do season outlines, you're going to do episode ideas. You're going to go through the process of creating episodes for your chosen television show in the same way that if you were on the staff. If you were in the writer's room, you were on the writing staff for a particular television show, this is what they would do. They would do episode breakdowns, season outlines. They would do episode ideas that were pitched to the room. So that's what the last 10 weeks of this course is about. Carnival Row, boy, do they need some writing help. Truly, I think you could get some work for this show. It's going to be in its first season this coming September. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. And even though that's Orlando Bloom on the left, even though it's got Orlando Bloom, the pre-reviews on this are terrible because the writing is so bad. So I'm telling you, they could use your help if you learn how to do it. So you might take a look at that. So let's see here. More step 6 then is draft and redraft. And of course, this is what every writer's room does. Every writer's room drafts and redrafts and redrafts and redrafts, even specific little parts of every television show so that it's crafted down to the right amount of time, the right act structure, and that it is the best representation of the show because they want the show to stay on the air. They want to. This is a new show that's on television, The Neighborhood. Pre-reviews on this, the writing is terrible. They're depending too much on just sort of the riffing capabilities of Cedric the Entertainer. They're on the left. And the pre-reviews on the released episodes are not good. So if you like this kind of show, you might write spec scripts for this show and see if you can get some work. So the process continues. You draft a first episode and you get staff notes back from your fellow classmates, and then you're going to redraft it, and then you're going to do the same thing for a second episode. So this is the real process as if you were in the writer's room, but you are actually outside of the writer's room, so you have to do it on your own for a while with a little bit of help from your classmates. Good Doctor is on CBS. It's been renewed for 2 or 3 more seasons. It's a really cool premise. This doctor has autism. He's an autistic savant, and I've watched a few episodes of this show. Very well written. I like the premise. If you like medical drama, which actually I do, so this is a good example of a 1-hour drama still on television, not in its last season. And so the last thing you're going to do, if you wanted to write for this show, is you're going to create a pitch. And so it's time, after you've written your 2 spec scripts that you're very proud of, you're going to sell yourself and your work. And to do that, you practice your pitching. And you pitch, for this class, you're going to pitch your best episode. You're not going to pitch both of your spec scripts. You're going to pitch one of them, the best of the 2. And so theoretically, you create this pitch. It's a presentation much like this one, and except we want to see your pretty face. And you get to, your work gets read, and you send it out to an agent, and you get hired theoretically. So that's really what this class is about. That's what we want to try and accomplish. Now, I'm sure that you're going to have a lot more questions, but at least you know now what this course is about, its procedure, its goals, and the rationale, the reasons why we've set it up the way we have. So, this is Dr. Mark Keuthan, and let's get started on the process of creating your 2 spec scripts for the television show of your choice.